I'm so freaking stoked for today. I'm going to introduce you again because I think a lot of people who are on now or might be watching in our program didn't get yesterday's teaser. If you guys have not seen it or heard about him, Lee is a king for prosperity. I've known him almost 10 years and I've watched him speak on stage to hundreds of people. He's done more than 643-day events, helping people to gain wealth and really live their highest expression in life. If you guys can just imagine 640 events that are 3 days long, he's done it. He's just this mind-blowing coach, and I'm so stoked to have him on. So thank you, Lee, for joining us and opening this program.
Well, it was great to be here. First of all, I just want to say to you and say to your group here and everyone that's watching that it's an honor and a privilege to be able to speak to your people that have trust with you and that you trust me enough to be here. And in fact, I commend everyone for being on here because, there's so many people across the world who claim they want to make a transformation in their life. They claim that they want to do something better for themselves. And then COVID happens and the world stops. And a lot of people have an opportunity to say, you know what, I have the opportunity to do things I haven't been able to do before because it just seems like everything has stopped. And most other people, what are they doing? Watching Netflix, they're just doing things that are not transforming themselves to their higher self and to being who they were created to be. But the fact that all of you are here and that you're hearing my voice right now and you're seeing us here just shows how sincere and honest you truly, truly are about making a transformation in your life. And while others are talking about it, you're here doing something about it. And so I would just commend each and every one of you because it shows that you're different from other people. And I also, at the same time, just urge each and every one of you to continue in that walk, continue being not the talker, but being the doer of your life. And so again, thank you guys for allowing me to be here. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity. It really means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So that's victim versus responsible. And that's what he's saying. Get into the responsible. I would love for you again to give us like your 2-minute pitch about who Lee is. Like tell us a little on your story and how you got to where you are.
I guess my story is just like everyone else. I was taught to go to school, get a job, work hard, that whole make good grades. And so I didn't start making good grades until I went to college because my mom was paying for it. So I knew the sense of responsibility went up. And so I said, hey, I'm going to go to college, graduate with honors. I was able to do that. And, but it was during these times that I was following what I was taught, which was to go to school, get a job, work hard. And my goal was to do this in the Army. And I always wanted to become an Army chaplain because I wanted to mix my faith with my love for the military service because my mom was in the Army. She went into the Army as a single mom. She went in as a private, didn't speak English very well. And that's where the Escobar comes from, just so everybody knows. And let's just keep it real clear. Nothing in the chat boxes. I'm one of the good Escobars. There is no relation to any Pablo or any Netflix shows that people may have been watching. So my mom was a single mom and she had to raise 2 boys on her own. So I've seen the struggle that she had to go through being a Hispanic woman, also being in the military when it wasn't conducive for women to be in the military. And she went in as a private and ended up retiring as a major in the United States Army. And so she's always been my hero. And so I wanted to fulfill that by being in the military and also by combining my faith as an Army chaplain. It was during that time that I found out that I had a problem with my shins and my knees. And so all my goals and everything I ever wanted to go active duty came to a halt. So I had to make a decision, which was either do nothing or at least go into the Army Reserves. So I decided to go into the Army Reserves, and which I got to spend 18 years in the Army Reserves. I ended up leaving the Army Reserves. Come to find out, though, was a paperwork issue why I had to get out. And it was a misconception. I'm actually getting ready to go back into service again, into the military. And because I found out during COVID, it was a mess up on paperwork. So that's good that I get to stay in, go back in. Just the way God works, where everything comes together, it's just been incredible. And then I was working in a restaurant. And I had to figure out, what to do. So I was working in a restaurant, moved up to general manager. It was during that time that I was able to take my military skills and put them into the restaurant by creating SOPs and checklists and organizing things. And when the opportunity came to become a part owner, I was offered the opportunity, so I became a part owner in the restaurant business. Currently still have 2 restaurants. However, going back to that time, I was doing what I felt was doing very well at the time. And I just knew something instinctively was saying, this won't last forever. And so you need to do something else also. So I started looking for multiple streams of income. And that's how I found real estate investing. Saw an infomercial on TV. And that infomercial basically took me to a 1-day class, took me to a 3-day meeting. It was there I decided that real estate investing would be my next pursuit that I would have to adding streams of income. And by following coaching and support and education, I was just crushing it massively. And that's where the teacher part of me said, I want to start teaching and helping people, because if I can do it, go from, not knowing anything about real estate investing, and through education and mentorship, be able to just start crushing it in my market, then I could go back. I want to be able to teach people by saying, if I can do it, you can do it too. So I became a personal mentor going into people's hometowns. I did over 100 different cities where I'd go into people's hometowns one-on-one, help them build up their investing business. And then I wanted to do the same 3-day events that got people excited about in real estate investing. So that's what I started doing. And then from there, I started teaching 3-day events on real estate investing and mixing in, different ways of thinking and believing. And that's where the wealth ethics came out of, because I started seeing that there were commonalities of why people fail, why people succeed in business, why others just dream about it, why others have the Midas touch, it seems like, why others create wealth and it just disappears. And so from that came the wealth ethics. And since, so that after 640 events later, I guess here I am.
Here you are. And I love that, as if you guys are listening to him, the key points is that he never stopped being of service, and he never stopped pivoting. And it's really important to have multiple streams of income and to be open and receptive to what your intuition is guiding you and to what else is out there, because like COVID has taught us, we just don't know if what we have right now is forever. And most money coaches are going to teach you to get multiple streams of income. So it's really important. Be of service, stay in that state of openness, and to continue on that flow. So moving right in to what you were just talking about, wealth ethics. Can you tell us what that means to you and how you teach people?
So I personally believe that when it comes to money, when it comes to wealth, it's a relationship. And with any relationship, whether it's a relationship with yourself, whether it's a relationship with another person, whether it's a relationship with with God, I'll say, or with money, it's a relationship. And there are certain things that every relationship is going to want to have in order to function smoothly. And the same thing with relationship with money. And so there's through my time of teaching and talking with people, I think there's usually about 3 groups of people when it comes to money. One group is those people who are always going for it, they're pursuing it, and it just seems like it never happens. I use a military term, they're a day late or a dollar short, it seems like all the time, or they're right there holding the door and the door handle falls right off, and it just seems like they're always saying it. How come it's not happening? And I feel like I'm doing everything right, but that's where they're missing the wealth ethics, the spiritual part of how to get money to move towards you as you're moving towards it. There's another group of people who we all heard about, the has-beens, or the once I had it, but now I don't. I remember when I used to have money, but now I don't. It's almost like they had it, like in a relationship, and then the person leaves and the wealth just leaves them. Why is that? Well, it's because the wealth ethics are not being implemented. Then there's another group of individuals who, for some reason, people just feel like everything they touch turns to gold. All they ever see is that their success, and they keep going higher and higher. And even if they fall, it's like, wow, that person is in a better place than they were when they lost it all. It's because those individuals have a commonality among them that wealth just seems like to always be there. And again, that's what the wealth ethics is all about. It's those principles that I've uncovered, I've discovered, that we've all heard, but I've categorized them together to put them in one place to say, this is how we can have wealth move towards us as we move towards it. And we don't have to be the victim and feel like, oh, it's always running away from me. But now with the wealth ethics, a person has the power to be able to take that relationship with money and draw it into them and hold on to it, and then have the ability to give back also.
I love, this is what I call money archetypes. So you're relating in your unconscious and your conscious level to a certain personality trait. And it really helped me uncover mine because I had this victim and self-sabotager. And just realizing that that was an old belief, a belief that I had, instantly made me so much better when it came to an income. I used to feel like, and a lot of those things that you were talking about, and I don't anymore. I know it's up to me. And we really move into that same, like, you can be the Midas touch, and it's owning that personality.
Yeah, I agree. And there's certain things that you kept saying, and maybe the group has felt the same way. You kept saying the way you feel about money. You kept saying the way you would think about the money, or you would think about wealth. And, something we talked about before, I've been doing a lot of research lately on how the brain works and how that really affects a person and what they do. I've probably invested over $15,000 in the last few years, just learning how, getting coaches and getting mentors, of learning how memory works, how the mind works, and reading a lot of books lately on how that works. And it all goes back to the way you think. It just, what happens is a person gets these stories, thoughts basically come from memories. That's what it boils down to. So our thought comes, when we start thinking about something, it comes from a past memory, something that's in us unconsciously from the past. And then we get an idea that sparks. And then all of a sudden, these thoughts start coming in, self-sabotage. And the self-sabotage comes from the past memory, the past stories that we've seen that we bring into the present. And then those stories that we start creating in our brain really start injecting those chemicals into our body. And so really feelings, whatever we feel, is nothing more than a release of chemicals that our brain has created. And one of the feel-good chemicals like dopamine, as an example, and that's why, people will take certain medications to release dopamine so they can feel a certain way. And what I've been learning is using your terminology, that we are the architect of that release of chemicals by the stories that we create. And the stories are created through the thoughts. So once a person learns how to manage their thoughts, then they can create different stories, or not allow those stories to create. And then when those stories are created, they release these chemicals. And now a person feels fear, they feel excitement, they feel something. And what I've learned recently is that, and what was freedom for me, is that we can literally control the chemical release. We have the ability to create stories. It's like, for instance, some of you, that are listening now, you can probably sit back right now and just remember a time where you just felt this sense of excitement, and felt this sense of joy, or you felt loved. Or you can go back in your mind and think about that. And as you begin to think about it, what begins to happen is you start to really feel like you're back in that place, because those chemicals are being released. And, it's like, example I like to use is, you're driving down the road and all of a sudden blue lights turn on. And all of a sudden the memory of what being stopped by a police officer means, whether from a movie, from stories family have said, or friends have experienced, or you've experienced, your brain automatically goes back to those stories. Your mind goes back to those stories, and it starts playing from that memory of what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden you see a person sees the blue lights, they start feeling scared, they start feeling anxious. Oh my gosh, I'm gonna get stopped. All these thoughts start going like a mile, millions of miles a minute. What about my insurance card? What about this? And then all of a sudden the person is feeling all this, and they get a sense of, they get traumatized, or they get fearful, or whatever they start to feel. Then all of a sudden the police officer goes right around you, and it's for someone else. You're like, ah, but your body literally felt what it was like to be stopped in that moment, because the brain doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake. Your mind doesn't. That's why a person can dream, and it's funny, you'll dream, and the person next to you, what did you do last night? That's what I dreamed of. You were doing something. No, I was right here, babe. Or a person will have a dream and they'll wake up and they'll still feel it, because the body doesn't know the difference between what's real and what's fake. And all that is, from a medical standpoint, from a science standpoint, is a release of chemicals. And so that the story created. So when a person learns to control their thoughts and their stories, they can literally control the chemical release. And for me, that was freedom, because now I'm not a victim to what I'm feeling. I am the victor to what I'm feeling. I'm taking responsibility by those thoughts. And so And so sometimes, people say, well, how do you do that? Well, meditation is one, and it's also, which is huge, learn to control those thoughts. And, sometimes people say for meditation, but I can't meditate because my thoughts are going crazy. Exactly. That shows us how much the brain is in, the mind is in control. Our thoughts are in control. Because the person can't stop for 1 minute and control their thoughts, the mind is going havoc. It's just wild. So then you just get one thought, control that, and maybe next time it's 2, next time it's 3, you get more control over it over time. And so the beauty about all of this is that how does a person learn to create those feelings? Well, for me, what I did was I started thinking about certain attributes. So for example, we talked about this. If for some reason the mind, if I say right now, think of a time someone hurt you and you got upset, people will remember that faster. They know what anger feels like. They know what pain feels like. They know what distress feels like, and they can literally create that easier. But if you ask someone, hey, remember a time that you felt deeply loved, then their mind is like, I can't remember. It's harder to remember. Remember a time you felt courage, and a person's like, man, I got to really think real deeply about that. I got to go. And it seems like some people can get there faster. Some it takes longer. And so for some reason, and I really believe because pain has more of an emotional attribute. Remember, you kept saying, I feel it. And so a memory is enhanced by how much you felt around that moment, what the emotion was around the moment. So example, what did you do yesterday? Oh, I don't remember. Hey, tell me about a car, when you almost got in a car accident 10 years ago. The person says, oh, this was happening, because there was an emotion that was so strong. So the stronger the emotion is around the memory, the brain will remember it more compared to something that's just like everyday stuff. Like, what'd you have for breakfast 2 days ago? I can't remember because it's normal. Right. And so with that being said, the way we do this is spend the time and remember a time and search through your memory bank of when you felt loved or you felt that sense of love or who you love. Like for me, it's my daughter. When I go back and think my 5-year-old daughter, when she says dad to me, I'm just filled with this sense of love and the sense of just these emotions just run through my body. The chemical releases are taking place. So what I did was I equate that to love. So through meditation and through deep thinking, I would play that story in my head until it was cemented so much that at the moment of thinking of her, I can purposely release those chemicals of love and I can feel that. So now being aware, if I get upset or I'm angry about something, say, wait a minute, I just got to feel my body. Somehow the chemical release of those negative chemicals are in my body now. All I got to do now is just release the chemicals purposely of love. So I go back, think about my daughter saying, dad. And all of a sudden, I mean, it's so real now that I'm just filled with this sense of love and a sense of gratitude where I instantly can overcome. Same thing with fear. I'm a person who has a lot of fear in my life. And so I had to go back and start thinking, what is it like to feel courageous? So I went to this story in my military training where I'm about, I don't know the height, but I'll say 10 or 15 feet high. And there's a beam and I had to walk across the beam. And I have people who are ahead of me who already crossed, people behind me who are waiting for me. And I have a drill sergeant who's yelling at me, go across the beam. And what I did was I put one foot on and I stepped that foot back. I said, okay, because it was just stories. I'm going to fall off. Something's going to happen. I'm going to slip. And it's my body just started taking control of my brain. I know I got to cross, but my body was in control now. And then it's almost like my body became the brain. It was controlling my decisions. Then I put another foot up. And when I put that foot up, I put it right back in. I put another one up, and I just kept doing that little dance right up there. And then I had people cheering me on. Thank goodness for community. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to do this. And I call that a courage point. There's always that point in our life where, if you don't do it now, you're never going to do it. And if you do it now, you're going to do it. That's what I call a courage point. And being aware and recognizing them and putting a title on it helps overcome. So I took one step and I took another step. I said, wow, this is easier than what I thought. And when I got into the middle, I literally started dancing. I was like, yeah, I was dancing on there, and making moves and because like a dance of victory. And I crossed. And now I focus on that story for courage. So I just spent, about 5, 10 or 15 minutes, have music in the background, replaying the story, cementing it in my mind of what that story was and what it created and what I felt. So now when I'm fearful, I go back to that story to purposely release the chemicals that bring courage so I can overcome something. And we can do that with anything. So anything someone feels distressed about, I feel lonely. Well, remember, that's just a chemical release. That's all it is. I thought it, played a story, those bad chemicals are released, I feel lonely. And so now go back to a place where you felt cared for, you felt loved, you felt empowered. Take the story, think about it, muse on it, meditate on it until you can instantly conjure up that story and that feeling. And then you're now in control of your life. You're not a victim. You're literally in control. You're taking responsibility of even the way you feel.
Yes. And you apply it to money. Vicki always says you're always practicing something. So what are you practicing? And what Lee is talking about is working the brain. You are training your brain. A few of us in this group actually read the book Untethered Soul. And Lee did the science behind Untethered Soul. And it's all about changing the story in our brain and taking control of the narrative. So the more you practice at it, the better you get at it.
So what happens neurologically basically is this. And see, once I learned the science of it, see, science is neutral. The science will tie everything together. And the way I envision is if I can learn the science behind it, anytime I want to do something, I just put my lab coat on, and I just purposely train the brain. So basically the way it works is, a really good person to look at is Caroline Leaf. She does she's great with the way the brain works. She also ties it to spirituality and to faith. And I've done a lot of work with her, learning her stuff. And basically it takes 21 days to create a habit, but that's where people stop. Just because someone has a habit of doing something doesn't mean it's been cemented in the unconscious. It hasn't been cemented into or rewired. That's a good word, because literally the brain rewires itself. So when we get a new thought or idea, it starts to create these thoughts, create like these tree branches. And you can see pictures of it online, or if someone wants some studies of it, we can look at it. And it creates like these branches like a tree. But what happens is if those branches don't take root, then you have what's called neural degeneration, and they start to go right back into forgetfulness. That's why someone can read a book, be inspired, and then 2 or 3 days later, it's like you forgot what you even read, because they didn't have time to cement and root into the subconscious. And so what happens is that in 21 days, we start to develop a new habit, but it takes another 42 days after that for it to be cemented into the unconscious. So that way we're literally unconsciously doing these new habits that we want to do. That's why, people start the gym, and then after a month or so, they quit. Or we watch a movie, we get hyped up, we get excited, or read a book, or watch a webinar, or listen to, the teachings that you have, and they're like, yes. But then it doesn't become an unconscious thing, where it's just rewired, because it takes 2 months for the brain cells to regrow. So once they're created, once we create those thoughts, then it takes 2 months for those cells to actually grow. So that's why it's about 63 days for a old habit not to be changed, but for that habit to become a subconscious habit where we're just acting it out without thinking about it. And so once I learned that science behind it, it's like, okay, good. It's okay if I fail. It's okay if I make mistakes. It's okay if things go wrong, because it takes about 63 days for it to become a natural, to rewire the brain, literally, to create new neural pathways that rewire the brain to have these ideas or these thoughts become natural and automatic in our lives.
So you just keep getting back on that train. I love this with abundance, because one thing my mom taught me was that you can take anything and turn it into treasure and manifest a life you want when you have nothing. And that truly is what wealth ethics are about, is training our brain to see opportunity. So instead of being in this victim mentality, you're going to have this unconscious, subconscious level about you that is going to just naturally find the way for more abundance and find the solution.
Exactly. Example, one of the wealth ethics, so we dive into that. So this was a good foundation, especially talking about how long it takes to make something go from the conscious to the subconscious to be natural, because these wealth ethics that I'm very thankful I've been able to put together and connect. It's not just something you hear one time, but expect for it to be a 63-day walk until it becomes part of your subconscious. Once it becomes part of your subconscious, then what happens is they flow naturally. So these wealth ethics are part of my subconscious. So the people who have the Midas touch are people who have taken these ideas, or people who are perceived to have the Midas touch. They've taken these ideas and they've made them part of their unconscious mind, if you want to say that, say it for that, or they've rewired themselves so it's natural for them. Like people say, well, I have a problem smiling all the time. That's cool. Your neural pathways right now are put in a position where you don't smile, just have a regular look. But if you feel in your heart that you're being called to smile more and to be more joyous, then expect it to be a 63-day journey until the brain has rewired itself to be that person who you want to become. And so, for instance, one of the wealth ethics is fix what's wrong with education. That goes back to this. Anything that goes wrong in our life is just something we don't know. That's all it boils down to. And so then once it's like my daughter, she's taking karate right now, and she always wants to focus on her strong side. And I say, no, baby, we're going to focus on the weak side. And she says, why? And I say, because the weak side exposes where you can build more strength. So it's not that you're weak, is that it's revealing to you where you need more strength at. And so then we focus on that area. So, and we know it's going to take a little bit longer to develop that into a strength. So everything to fix what's wrong takes education. Number one, that defines responsibility. Because instead of saying, oh, I am a victim of what life has given me, to realize that to fix what's wrong, it takes education. It's a person taking responsibility. So everything comes from a lack of knowledge. So now all of our problems usually comes from a lack of knowledge. They can be fixed with knowledge and through implementation. So that's one of the first wealth ethics. Now, will the person have that inherently in them after hearing it? No, you have the idea sparked in the brain, but for that to become a natural occurrence in our lives, it might take about 63 days for that to actually become real and unconscious. For some people, they've already known that for the last 20 days. So this solidifies it. So now it's a total of 63 days, 43 more days until that becomes natural. So in my life and wealthy people's lives, as soon as something goes wrong, they're finding a way to fix it, either by hiring people, reading more books, and letting that problem expose what needs to be fixed. So that's an example right there of one of the wealth ethics.
This is really, really, really important, and something that I just had my aha about not that long ago, that essentially all of us have a weak spot. And if you do not hone in on what your weak spot is and find the solution, whether it's hiring somebody or developing the skill on your own, it's an energy that's like always in you. You're, like for example, with our product line, we had this reoccurring issue that kept popping up, and we kind of skirted to the side. And then every time we would make a sale, we'd go, oh, what if? And that was our trim tab. This is what we call in Odyssey, the retreat we teach. And your trim tab is that small thing on the end of a ship that controls the major motion of the boat. And when you have this small thing that seems small inside of you, its energy can play in such a big form on your everyday level. So if Lee's really successful at doing all these events, he's got all this underneath him, but his unconscious says he doesn't know how to put himself to the world or whatever that is, he's not going to get there. So he's got to focus. And that's what he's saying. Educate himself or hire someone to take that weak spot and make it strong.
Exactly. And it goes back to what we discussed earlier, which is really cool, is the thought process. So it's like in the weakness that you just discussed, the thought process was, it might have been, oh, what if this goes wrong? Or what if someone doesn't want the product? So the thoughts now create a story, which then that story released these chemicals that cause a person to freeze and say, you know what? Maybe we should wait to do that later. And it's just the way the thought was. So if we change the thought and change it into a positive thought, like weakness is not a negative thing, but the weakness exposes or it reveals where we can get better. So now, as soon as we see a weakness in something, hey, this is just showing me where I can get better at. And now it creates the story in our brain of all the times something was weak and we got better at it. And now it releases those chemicals and we're like, yeah, I'm excited. Let's get it fixed. So it goes right back to how the thoughts and how we manage those thoughts become so valuable. Really, really, I think there was a study done, and I was going to read this study, that research from Concordia University and 15 other universities worldwide shows that 94% of people examined across 6 continents experience unwanted, intrusive thoughts, images, or impulses. So it's going to be natural to have those impulses and those negative thoughts. And that's where learning how to manage those thoughts becomes the key to success. And, you know, and what your perception is of those thoughts, and learning how to capture those thoughts and evaluate them logically, by developing a mindset of thinking about things. Then what it does is it starts to help your self-care regimen. It starts to help your self-significance parts, and you start to self-evaluate. And when you're self-evaluating stuff, your imagination grows also. And what the team of researchers found out is that those thoughts, images, and impulses is what gives people OCD, because they keep these. So the team of researchers found that the thoughts, images, and impulses symptomatic of obsessive compulsive disorder are actually widespread globally, and that this study shows that it's not the unwanted, intrusive thoughts that are a problem of OCD, but how those thoughts are managed about this situation that causes OCD. And they use that as an example. So that's why the management of the thoughts are so powerful, and learning how to reframe those thoughts becomes so valuable, especially when it comes to wealth. Because, you know, I'm sure some of you guys could type some stuff in here right now, those of you who are listening, ladies who are listening, is that what are some of the things you were taught about wealth and about money growing up? You know, I don't know, Sarah, what were some of the things that you were taught about money growing up? Or people with you?
There is an unconscious, conscious, I think, story throughout both of my parents, that the actual money income is a little bit outside of themselves. My dad especially was very much in victim when it came to achieving his own income. And it was just not something that he could do. And I think women in general, I'm sure all you girls are like, yes, have this. So they prove it in epigenetics, which I love this. I love teaching epigenetics, is that our memories are passed down through our DNA. And we women especially have been passed down this story that the man makes the income and the woman cooks in the kitchen. And that is something I really challenge all the women to break through. So that it was ingrained in me. And I think on an unconscious and conscious level, it was just the man makes the money and the woman stays in the kitchen.
Yeah, it's the same that Crystal just said. She said that, which is right alongside, is that men make more money than us. And so now that becomes, you know, or Jackie says that you have to work really hard to make money. But then if you really look at real life, are there women who are multimillionaires and billionaires? Yes. You know, do the rich work harder or do they work smarter? And so because these thoughts are so deep and ingrained in our mind, they create these stories, and those stories, again, literally control how a person moves and reacts. And until those stories are changed or the thoughts are changed, it's really easy to stay captive in what's going on. And it's funny because I was raised differently. My mom was the sole breadwinner, all right? And so she was always working. And my grandfather, who my mom had to take care of, was actually the cook. So I had an opposite in my house. So I actually have, I wasn't raised with that perspective the same way. But again, you know, just like Crystal said and Jackie mentioned a second ago, these are thoughts that are deep rooted into people's minds that if we look around today, those are not really the truth. And what I mean by that is it may be in a person's mind, the truth generally, but then you see all these exceptions. And now the question becomes, who do you want to be? Do you want to be the general, or do you want to be in the general category or the exception to the rule?
Exception.
And that's where the choice comes in. And so, you know, like for instance, you know, if you have to work really hard to make money. Well, one of the wealth ethics, which is the mission is not just about me, it's about other people. So when a person has this mindset that making money is not just about me, they have this deep-rooted belief that it's about other people. What does that mean? That means now we work with other people's time, other people's effort, other people's money. And if I'm working a business all by myself, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, then the truth is the business will fail. I can't scale. I can't retire. I can't give up. I can't retire. I can't leave. Not give up, but I can't leave. However, if we have this mindset, it's not about me, but it's about other people. Then we start hiring people in our business. We start bringing other individuals to make it work. And, you know, the wealth ethics, if you look at the wealth ethics, WE is we, wealth ethics, right? And then if you take the word me, ME, and you flip it upside down, which allows me to flip the me, myself upside down, it's we.
Yeah.
Me is really we. So we have to move away from the me, myself, and I for everything mindset, which is such a employee mindset. Yeah, it's an employee mindset. So the moment a person wants to become an entrepreneur, become a business owner, it's totally different. You know, employees want to save, whereas an entrepreneur wants to invest. You know, an employee is me, myself, and I. An entrepreneur is we. You know, I call it the I virus. You know, in virus, you have VIRUS, I. It's the I virus or the us virus. You get to choose. And, you know, there's good viruses, and we've noticed lately there's also bad viruses. And in the business world, you know, virus has I and us in it. So a person gets to choose again, you know, do you want it to be I or do you want it to be us? Do you want it to be me or do you want to flip it and make it we? And when a person has that belief system, they realize it's not just about me, but it's about other people. Now we start serving the community. Now we start hiring people. Now that belief system that it's hard to make money is no longer hard, because hard is meaning I'm doing it versus someone else doing it. And the other part of hard to that can sometimes people say it's hard to make money, that, you know, it's hard to be rich. You know, if that's the hardwired mindset in someone's mind, it's right for them, because your brain, and I know we hear the cliches of that stuff all the time, and the cliches do nothing for me. So I used to hear all the time, you know, if you believe it, you'll achieve it type of stuff. And I'm like, that means nothing for me, because I'm still battling in my head what's going on. But when I learned the science behind it, believing it, you'll achieve it, then it became more real for me. So for instance, what's the science behind believe it and you'll achieve, you know, you can achieve it? Well, if you start to believe it, then, the brain then will start creating the neural pathways. It'll start creating the connections it needs for it to really start happening in our lives. And we go through that 63-day process. Now it becomes more of a habit for us and unconscious. So now we can start achieving it. And if you look at most people who start a business, if it doesn't happen quickly, they quit. Oh, I didn't make the money as soon as I wanted, or they quit. And so they haven't had time for the whole new career, the whole new way of thinking and believing, which is completely opposite from the employee mindset, to become hardwired in your brain. And because it's more than just one thought or idea, but a multitude of thoughts and ideas in business, it takes more time for those thoughts and ideas to become unconscious and to become, you know, created and take root in our mind. And when we know that, it's so liberating, because we're now in control and we know it's a process now.
This is really important because you get unemotional about it and you can see it from an analytical standpoint. And when you have these steps that Lee's talking about, you can back up and see it as the big picture and know that it is just a story and exactly what you can do from there. So we've got 15 minutes left. I want to encourage everyone, if you have Q&A for him, to ask it. He will be coming back at the end of our program. Thank you so much, Lee, to help close the container. So if you don't have it now, you can have it later. And in light of just what we talked about yesterday, I think that adding just a bit more on your 4 E's and how those steps, so that this is an analytical way that you guys can take a step process when you're feeling the emotions.
All right. So what we discovered yesterday was, so I wrote this stuff and put the 4 E's together years ago. But now I think it's the definition of pivot. So when people say, how do you pivot? Then it's the 4 E's, because pivoting is a natural thing for business owners and entrepreneurs. So what are the 4 E's? Number one, the first, for any problem, for any ouch, for any change, whether it's health, wealth, relationships meaning personal or spiritual, for anything in our lives that we want to move forward with, it's the same process. And a lot of people do it unconsciously, but now when we can categorize it and we can bring it into an easy step-by-step format, you and I are more in control of our lives. So the first one is to evaluate. That's the first step. 4E, first E is evaluate. And Socrates said that an unexamined life is not worth living. An unexamined life is not worth living. That's Socrates. So in the evaluation phase, we're examining where we're at and what we want to do. So an example is, I don't know, give me an example. We can use it for anything. Sarah, give me an example.
To a formula, or to evaluate where I'm at.
Yeah, give me an example of a problem that might be fixed: wealth, health, happiness, anything.
Well, COVID, and you've been told that your restaurant cannot serve any longer.
Okay, restaurant can't serve. Number one, evaluate. So now we're looking at the restaurant. Okay, evaluation there happened automatically because COVID comes along, and now you have to reevaluate your situation that you're in. The problem, the reason why most people don't evaluate is because they go into what I call a destruction zone. And here's how destruction zone is. Life is going good, you become comfortable. Once a person becomes comfortable, they become complacent. I don't want to do anything. And then once they become complacent, oh, things will stay the same, everything's okay, everything's going smoothly. Then a source of arrogance comes in where, oh, I'm okay forever, nothing's ever going to happen. And we all know pride comes before a fall. So comfortable, complacent, and then arrogant. And so what COVID did was it just revealed to people, hey, I got to start evaluating very quickly. So now I evaluate my situation with the restaurant. Will the restaurant survive? Is it going to fail? What's going to happen next? So that's evaluating. Now, these are the first two are moving us towards change or to realization of change. That's the biggest one. Now, step number two is to evolve. Evolve is a very simple process. It's just making a decision. Okay, what's going to happen to my restaurant? What's going to happen next? I'm not sure. Is it going to fail? How do I keep income coming in? You know, there's those types of questions that we all go in our mind when a problem occurs that we're doing anyway. We all evaluate our situations anyway when we're going through it, a bad situation. Now, evolving is just saying, you know what? I'm going to do something about it. I'm not going to let the restaurant fail. I'm going to produce more income. I'm going to find another way to take care of my customers, even though they can't sit down and dine in and eat. So it's just making that decision to evolve. Now, the heart of it is to educate, to learn what you don't know. So if a person says, you know, I don't know how to get customers in to my business because they've evaluated and made a decision to evolve, now it becomes natural to say, okay, how can I make this work? So what do they start doing? They start researching. They start talking to people. They start looking for mentors. They start automatically, it's like it just happens naturally. Their brain starts going to these memories of the past. What are other restaurants? What have other people have done in order to be able to make money without people dining in? So then they might have, oh, I never used DoorDash before. Maybe I need to sign up for DoorDash, or maybe I've always thought about it, but oh, I didn't need it because, you know, again, the arrogance came in of I'm fine with the dining. And then also these ideas just automatically start popping up. And then next thing it is to implement. Now, when it comes to, execute. When it comes to education, there's two ways to educate: School of Hard Knocks or having a mentor, having a coach. And so some people just do some research and try to figure it out on their own, and hopefully they get the right recipe. Some people do, some people don't. From my experience, more people don't get the right recipe of how to make something work by School of Hard Knocks compared to those who actually get figured out. And the other one is having a mentor, you know, talking to other people and or hiring someone. Hey, tell me how to take my business into, into a way where I don't have to rely on as much dine-in, or I can lose 50% of my dining customers and still have income coming in and having cash flow. And so those are the 4 steps: evaluate. It's just, you know, doing an inward, what do I need to do? How do I fix it? What's next? You know, all those crazy thoughts that come in our mind. And that's where the 4 E's are so valuable, is because most people stop with evaluating their situation. And evaluation isn't wrong, like the negative stuff. What if it fails? What if it goes wrong? What if this happens? That's where most people stop, and that's what causes the dis-ease in our body. Then the next step is just to make a decision to evolve. I'm not going to be the victim here. I'm not going to let this thing fail. I'm going to figure it out. I got to evolve. And then focus on the education, learn what you don't know. Remember, education is a process, and then execute. So you can apply that to any situation that's going on in your life. I think as humans, we do the evaluation naturally when a problem occurs. But most of it is all negative. What if this fails? What if that happens? Which is all valid, but people a lot of people don't move to the next step, which is evolve, which is I'm not going to live here. I'm going to move to the next step. I'm going to figure it out. That's evolution.
It's so helpful. My favorite quote by Marie Folio is everything's figure outable. And that's what he's talking about, that educate, evolve decision. So that space in between there is just knowing that there is a solution. So I've put this in the comments. It's both on Facebook Live and here with our team in Zoom. And I know we're all coming from all around the world watching this. Lee's in Seattle, I'm in Hawaii, I've got people in Oregon. And I want to thank everyone who's already joined the Fuel program, because it's just building momentum even for my own life. And I'm super stoked about this mission that we're all on to elevate ourselves and to elevate the world. And I think now more than ever, it's really important for us to be a part of community in these types of ways. So before we end the call, I want everyone to know where they can find more about you, to maybe have private coaching with you, or just follow your journey. How can people connect with you later?
Well, first of all, if you guys want, you can go to richwarrior.com, and basically I'm taking the military mind and the entrepreneurial spirit and combining it together. I have a book that's coming out pretty soon. I'm personally not doing coaching right now, just because of the stuff that's on my plate. However, I can look at that at a future time if people are interested, and going from there. I want to be sure that I'm able to focus 100% on individuals, and my coaching doors are closed right now, probably for about 2 or 3 months, as I put other things into place that I feel that will serve the community better. And so if someone's interested in that, they can get in touch with me. And then as soon as I open up the doors for that for myself, then I'll be sure to email individuals for that. There's just things I want to pull out, get together for the public, that I'm not, that putting my time coaching 5, 10, 15 people, or, so many people, just puts what I have on the back burner right now. Mm-hmm. And so, but richwarrior.com is a good place to go. You can follow me, of course, on Instagram, Lee Escobar. That is a total of 3 E's, all right, L-E-E, and the other one for E for Escobar. And so that's a good place. And there's one thing I feel in my spirit that I want to bring up, if it's okay with you, real quick. You have 5 minutes.
7 minutes.
How many?
You have 6 minutes.
So real quick, 6 minutes. Affirmations, positive affirmations. We had a discussion about this. Affirmations didn't work for me because I didn't feel congruent with, like, for instance, I am brilliant. But deep down, I know that I am not brilliant automatically unless I do something about it. And so some people just have this blind faith. I'm a millionaire, and they'll just believe it, and that works for them. Well, for me, things like that didn't work, because inside I was like, I know there's things I have to do, and there's no guarantee it's going to happen if I just sit at home and eat bonbons. So I always had a problem with affirmations. And mentally, if you don't have a congruence with your internal thought and your words, there's going to be a separation there, which actually causes the brain to go through neural degeneration, because you don't have integrity with yourself. And so something that I came across a few weeks ago that might help people out. There's 3 groups of people: those who don't believe in personal affirmations. There's those who, as soon as you say it, boom, they're going to go for it, and they believe it with 100%. That's great for them because their integrity, the oneness is there with the internal and their voice. But there's another group of people like myself who I can't say that with integrity and really mean it, so it doesn't work for me. So I found another way to say it. So let's say I want to work with the word brilliance, Instead of saying I am brilliant when I know that I'm not right now, I have a cognizant, a dissonance with that, right? A separation. So here's what I say. I have the potential, because this is what I really mean anyway. I have the potential to be brilliant. And as long as I do X, 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 Y, Z every day, I will arrive to that brilliance. And for me, now when I say that, I have this connection of integrity between my inner self and my words. And now my brain can actually start creating those neural pathways because of the congruence between that. So that was just something I felt in my spirit to share with people, in case there was anyone that was in that situation as I was, that needed that revelation to really be. We know the affirmations work. However, the way I was speaking them wasn't working for me because of the integrity I needed to feel with what I was saying. So
I see a lot of people really nodding in agreement, and I think that that's really important to touch on. So if you guys are here again, thank you so, so much. And if you're watching live on Facebook, you can still join the Fuel program until July 15th. You guys get your questions together because Lee is coming back and you all will hear from me shortly.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Lee. I so
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
And Crystal, I'll talk to Sarah for you to help you out with that answer, okay? All right. You're welcome.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.